everything with entrepreneurship, no matter what route you decide to take, whether that's a physical product or a digital product or services or whatever it looks like, there's going to be fear and discomfort. And the only way you're going to grow your business is if you walk into that and like just face it.
Hey there, I'm Goli Kalkaran, and this is Lessons from a Quitter, where we believe that it's never too late to start over. No matter how much time or money you've spent getting to where you are, if ultimately you are not happy, then it's time to get out. If you're feeling stuck and you feel like there's gotta be more, there's gotta be a way to feel fulfilled and excited about what you do, then this is the podcast for you. Each week, I will sit down with an inspiring guest who quit their professional career in order to forge their own path and create a life that they love. Hello, friends. Welcome to another episode. I am so excited to have you guys here. If you tuned in last week, then you know that the book for our book club for March is Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert. I adore this book. It is very easy and quick to read, but it is just such a life-changing perspective on doing creative work. And so I really recommend you read it. We will talk about it at the end of this month. Also, as you know by now, because I keep droning on about it, I am now offering free coaching calls. Last month was amazing, which was last week. I love just getting in and diving into what is stopping you. What is the thing you need help with? What are the steps that you need to take right now? What are the limiting beliefs and the fear and all that other good stuff? So if you are wondering about how to quit your job and what you should be doing, sign up at quitterclub.com/coaching, and I will send out the link every month. It's a Zoom call. You just hop on the link. We meet up and we can chat about anything. So I will send out the dates for March. It'll be typically the last week of the month. And I hope to see you there. So you can actually sign up anywhere on my website for my newsletter and you'll get that. But quitterclub.com/coaching will guarantee you that you're on that list. So go ahead and do that. Okay. I am so excited about the episode today. I have Gemma Bonham-Carter on. And the reason I'm so excited is because I've wanted to talk about this topic for a long time, and I didn't really know how to broach it or who I wanted to have on, and she's the perfect person. And the topic is online businesses, and more specifically, like online education, because what we've said a lot on this podcast is you don't know what you don't know. And a lot of what I hear from people that I talk to through the podcast or people that are in my coaching programs or group programs that want to quit is you only go to what you know. And so a lot of times people love the idea of being their own boss and being an entrepreneur, and they really want to try something else, or they have like a passion for something. And they think that the only way to start a business is to start the type of businesses they know, which is like what you see on Shark Tank or, you know, all the small businesses you see around yourself. So people start thinking like, maybe I should open a cafe, or maybe I should start a, maybe I should create a product that I can get on Shark Tank with. And while that is great, if that is something you want to do, like if there's a product that you feel really passionate about, and that is a great type of a business, typically the barrier to entry for those types of businesses is very difficult because products and like physical products and brick and mortar businesses require a lot of money up front. Like you have to have a lot of capital, and typically people will then have to get investors, and it requires a little bit more, I think, like business acumen and really understanding what your market's going to be like, how you're going to scale it, all of that stuff. So it can feel really overwhelming, and there can be a lot of steps to getting it off the ground. It can take a very long time. And so I think a lot of times people get discouraged. Now, what I don't think people understand in the traditional world is this world of online business that is just exploding. And so many people are creating lives and businesses that afford them their dream lives. And they're doing it by themselves, out of their homes, on the side, nights and weekends. It doesn't require capital. And it's just a really great way to create a business around a topic that you are passionate about or something you really love. Now, we've had some people on the podcast that have done this. So we've highlighted it in certain ways, like in episode 67, We had Casey Morris, who has used to be a teacher and then started selling her resources on a marketplace for teachers and started doing so well that she began teaching other teachers how to sell their resources. She now has a multiple six-figure business, if not seven-figure at this point, doing that, which is amazing. For someone that started out as an elementary school teacher, not making that much money, it's amazing what her business now affords her. We had episode 65, Tara LaFerrera, who has a brick and mortar business. She has a gym, but she also started teaching her workouts in her own online membership site. And so she now has an online business that's doing incredibly well. And, we've had a couple of other people, actually a bunch of other people, I would say, that have done this kind of stuff. Elle Druin on episode 53 has a membership site that helps people with social media marketing. Anyways, the list goes on. But I really wanted to highlight and kind of dig into what that means. Like, how did they set it up? What are people doing? And so I'm so excited to have Gemma on because this is what she does. She has made it her mission to help other people create, market, and scale, actually, digital products like courses and memberships. She is a serial entrepreneur, a digital marketing strategist, and a podcast host. And she built her own multiple six-figure digital product business. And she realized the freedom that it provided her and her family. And so she really wants to help other people understand that they can do it too. Her podcast is called the Passive Project Podcast, which you should check out. And when she's not doing all things entrepreneurial, online business, empire building journey, you can find her on adventures with her two kids in Ottawa, Canada. So the reason I really want her to have her on is to kind of dispel some of the myths or some of the fears that we all have about what this online space entails and to really talk about how you can create a thriving business that will maybe let you quit your job. So without further ado, let's jump in and get into the goodness with Gemma. Hi, Gemma. Thank you so much for joining me today.
I'm so excited to be on the show.
I am so excited to have you because this is a topic I've really wanted to talk about for a long time because I think that my audience may not understand the glory and beauty of this online digital product space. And I cannot wait to open their eyes to the possibilities. So we will get into kind of your zone of genius and all the amazing things you do to help people sell their products online. But before we get into that, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, kind of your career and how you ever even ended up in this online business space?
If you talk to any kind of digital entrepreneur, they usually have a really roundabout way of why they ended up where they ended up. And I am definitely no exception. My background is in public health. I was going the very traditional career route. I had a 9-to-5 job as a project manager, but always had this creative side to me. And it just wasn't being fulfilled in my workplace. Back in 2010, it feels like a million years ago now. I started a blog and I didn't really even know what a blog was, but I had just discovered this one blog that I loved that was all about renovating homes. And my husband and I had just bought our first fixer-upper home. And I thought, man, what a fun creative outlet and a way to share renovations with our family and friends. No concept that this could be anything more than that. So I bought a domain name on a whim. It was called The Sweetest Digs. It's really embarrassing that I even I don't even know where that name came from. And there was no thought process behind this at all. I had the ugliest website you've ever seen. Pretty sure my first blog post had no pictures in it. And I just started this on a whim. And on the evenings and weekends, I would write blog posts and I would take pictures of these DIY projects I was doing around our house. And lo and behold, family and friends started reading it, but then so did other people. And it kind of blossomed into this whole other side to my life that I didn't even think was a possibility. And then my eyes really opened up when I attended my first blogging conference because I suddenly saw wow, there's so many other people that are doing this same thing and they're doing it and making money at it. This is not just an online diary. This can be a business. It was really a big moment for me and a big turning point. And I suddenly started to see this blog as something bigger. So I really I started to monetize it in all of the traditional blogging ways, display ads and affiliate income. I started to even work with brands. I think the very first brand I ever worked with, I didn't get a paycheck, but I got a free can of paint. And I thought I was like, I thought I just like hit the lottery, won the lottery or whatever. And then it all just snowballed from there. And I started really making money. I would call it like a very sort of significant side hustle at the time. I still had my 9 to 5 job, but this was something that I was doing on the side that was bringing in more and more income, and I was becoming more and more passionate about it and finding new ways to monetize it and new ways to grow my audience. And then it was around the time when I'd had my daughter, it was my first child. The blog had gotten fairly significant enough that I didn't need to go back to my 9 to 5 after my maternity leave with her. I was able to just do contract work. So like I would take these contracts in public health so that I could even out my income, because the blog wasn't quite enough at the time for me to fully leave my profession.
Can I just ask how many years it took of you doing that blogging on the side before it kind of got to this place where it was a significant side hustle?
Totally. So I started it in 2010 and I had my daughter in 2013. And I had kind of like a year of maternity leave with her, where that year of maternity leave, I was really ramping things up on the blog. So it was like a significant side hustle kind of by 2014, let's say.
But I love that really quickly before we keep going, because I think a lot of times we are so desperate to like find the next thing and jump, and we put so much pressure of creating something so quickly. And one of the reasons I even like the idea of a side hustle, even though I know obviously it's hard to balance with work and kids and whatever to do something on the side, a lot of this stuff just takes a while to learn the ins and outs. And you were just saying like doing it all the wrong ways, which is the best way to do it in the beginning. Just put it out there, right? Because how are you ever going to learn? And people are waiting until they have the right logo and they have the best website. And it's like, you're just delaying your own success because it's going to take you a million other things to learn before you get there. And so I love that it's like a slow build. Like you're learning how to blog, you go to a conference, you learn a couple more tips, you implement it. And like over time, and not that much time, 3 years, 4 years, it's not that much time.
That is time when it's like, I'm still working that 9 to 5 and I'm pregnant, having a kid. And like this, I did not have loads of time to dedicate to this. And to your point, like I went to a conference for sure, but everything was self-taught. And like back then, like there weren't really online courses, or if there were, I didn't know about them. And I had no mentor. I had nothing to invest in to kind of show me the way. This was serious trial and error. And this is also back in the time of like, I had to learn to code on WordPress. Like there's no like pretty Squarespace theme to like have a beautiful website in a week.
I love talking to online entrepreneurs like who've been doing it for 10 years because it's so funny. It's like that I had to walk 40 miles in the snow to get to school both ways, But it is true because there is like now, it's just so plug and play now. There's like so many softwares where you just like click a button and it sets up a website for you and everything is there. And it was not like that. So
exactly. Yeah. So that was definitely the beginning of my journey. And then I kind of had this transition time when I had my second son, was when I really started to discover digital products. I had seen people selling things like ebooks, but for very cheap, like $9 or something, right? And suddenly I was starting to see that there was a possibility here of higher end or higher ticket, I should say, digital offers like online courses and, memberships and things like that. Again, I had this like light bulb moment of thinking like, oh, well, maybe this is the next step for me. And at the same time, I had started to be asked by other bloggers about how I got to where I got to with my blog. Because even though it was, let's call it a quote unquote significant side hustle and not a full-time income, lots of people still wanted that side hustle, right? And wanted to understand how I had made that happen for myself. When I was pregnant with my son, I decided at first I was going to launch an ebook, but then this ebook started to be really long. And I was like, this is going to be a lot easier if I just record some videos and turn this into a course. After I had him, which was in 2016, by the end of 2016, launched my very first online course, which was all about how to monetize a blog. This is no like amazing story where I tell you I made, $100,000 overnight with this first course. Like can't remember. I should go back and look at how much I actually made, but I want to say it was probably like $1,000. Like it really wasn't that very much money. And I think I charged $79 for this course. It was not a lot, but it was the beginning to this whole next step in my journey.
I love that. And first of all, I will just say, because like we do see a lot of marketing these days of like, I launched my course and within 6 months I was making multiple six figures. And it's like become my personal pet peeve. And so I always do so much online stalking to figure out who that person is, because inevitably they've had like 3 other online courses before that, or done, again, go back to this, like, it's like very rare that you have no experience, don't know what you're doing, and then you hit it out of the park the first time. And that's fine. You don't have to. And I know we get sold that. So a lot of times we think it's going to be, I'm going to put it up and I'm going to start like just raking in the dough. But I like that it's like, it doesn't have to be like that. And it doesn't mean that you still can't be successful. Like you do it so that you learn, you try, and then you iterate.
Exactly. You test and you tweak and everything improves the more you do something. I think the real secret sauce is just in your consistency, because I think what I see a lot of people do is like have shiny object syndrome and try this one thing and then try the next thing and try the next thing. And nothing ever pans out the way they hope it's going to right away. But then the difference is if they had just stuck it out, they would have turned that corner. They would have seen the success that they were hoping for and wishing for. It just doesn't happen that quickly. And anybody who you look at, who you admire and you put on a pedestal and you think it happened overnight for them, it didn't. And if you were to sit down and have like a coffee with them, they would tell you that really wasn't the case. Like, whether it's their 3rd course they launched and that was the one that had success, or maybe it was the first course that they launched, but they had 4 businesses before that and were like a seasoned entrepreneur and understood business, right? And so they're coming to it with a completely different level of like mindset and education. So there's always a backstory.
Absolutely. And it's funny because I think in the online space, like I know that we get this marketing of like making it quickly, and it's usually not like that. But in the grand scheme of things, like there are tons of people who are making a ton of money, and the relative time span is not that much. It may not be 6 months, but 2 years, 3 years, 4 years to start making multiple 6 figures or 7-figure businesses that a lot of people are validly doing. Like that is possible. And I think if we maybe just tweak our expectation of like, okay, I think with any business, like any other brick and mortar business, like you never think that I need it to be successful in 6 months, right? Like you're giving yourself a runway to build it up. And I think the same can be done with online courses.
Yeah. And there's just this unrealistic expectation that I think is like driven by this like flashy marketing that we often see. And yeah, I mean, to your point, like I launched that first course of mine in 2017. It's now the beginning of 2020. If you would have told me then that I'd be sitting here now with like a healthy multiple 6-figure business, I would have laughed. Like I was going to be so happy just to make, I don't know, $20,000 a year from the course. Right. And like had never thought it would be big. I always thought it would be this like portion of my revenue where I was making income from all these different sources. And this was just going to be like a piece of that pie. Never did I think that I would have this sort of healthy of a business with such a large percentage of my income coming from digital offers.
Okay, so why don't you tell us what that business is now today that you're making multiple 6 figures? Like what do you offer and who do you help?
I still actually have the sweetest digs kind of running on autopilot on the side, but my business, you can find me at Bonham-Carter.com. And what I do is I help other online entrepreneurs who want to dive into the digital product space. I help them create, sell, market, and scale their digital product based businesses. And so whether that is a service-based entrepreneur who wants to add a digital arm to their business, maybe it is a blogger who knows that they could monetize their audience with a digital offer, or it's somebody brand new who wants to start an online business, who knows that they have a passion or a hobby or a skill or something that they can teach. And we transform that into a digital offer and build a business around it.
And so do you sell courses or do you sell memberships, or how do you do?
So I sell a few different things. So if we go like, let's just go, kind of like in a ladder. So I have like some small scale digital offers that are under $100. Like they solve a more immediate pain point for somebody. And so for a lot of my smaller offers are things like templates and tools that just help them solve a very specific problem. Like, for instance, I have one that's called 52 Prompts, and it's specifically for writing incredible weekly newsletters to your subscriber list. So that would be like a $27 product that I offer, or I offer like a webinar little mini offer where you get like the slide deck and the outline and all of that in a mini offer. So I had things like that on the kind of the low end. The mid end is I have an amazing membership program called the Passive Project. And that is where we have over 200 members who all sell digital products, who are learning how to really sell and market and scale their businesses. And that's what we do in there. There's a ton of content. Every single month I deliver some kind of strategy that's working for me and my business that either gets them more leads or more sales, because those are the only two things that you really should be focused on if you're building a digital product-based business is how am I growing my email list and how am I getting those subscribers to convert into buyers? So we dish on strategies to do that inside of that membership program. And then I have a couple of higher ticket, like higher priced online courses. One is called Course Creator School, and that is for fresh out of the gate folks who want to learn how to launch their first online course. And we take them step by step, starting from scratch. And the other one is actually called Build Your List Bootcamp, because if you know me for any length of time, you'll know that how much I talk about how important it is to build an email list. But I do it a little bit differently. So instead of building an email list and talking about lead magnets and talking about advertisements, like using paid advertising, the way that I like to teach my students to build their email list is through partnerships and collaborations. And so that's what that particular course takes them through.
Very cool. Okay. So backing up a little bit, because I think the majority of people here maybe aren't even considering an online business. Because I think my experience from the people that I meet through the podcast who are in my group program or, that sign up for coaching or whatnot, desperately want to leave their careers and are like, a lot of times it's like grasping at straws, like trying to figure out what's the next thing. And, you don't know what you don't know. And so I think a lot of times we go for what we know. And what we know is like, okay, if I want to start a business, I got to think of like Shark Tank or a startup. I'm going to go start some kind of app or something. And those things, while they're great, if that's something that you love to do, like there's a ton of capital involved. There's a ton, like you need funding, you may need more business background of understanding how to scale a business, whatever. There's a lot more that is involved than I think what a lot of people are doing in the online digital space, where it's like you can be a solopreneur, you can just be you building this business. But I think a lot of people don't really understand what they would do. And so I think listening to this might be like, okay, great, you were a blogger, so you could teach people that. I don't have anything. I'm a lawyer. Like I want to leave law. I have nothing I can teach people, or I don't have, what would I create into an online digital product?
For sure. I think sometimes it's just a matter of like removing yourself from the day-to-day life and go sit at a coffee shop or go somewhere and just let yourself take some space to brainstorm your passions, your skills, your hobbies. Like just put it all down on paper, because my guess is like everybody has something in them that they could create a business around. And it may not be super obvious to you at first, right? And it may not be like this. I think oftentimes people think, oh, well, it's just people who teach people how to run businesses. Like that's who is successful in selling online courses or memberships or whatever it might be. That's just not the case. Like there are people out there who are teaching watercolor painting or crochet, or there's somebody in my community who teaches parents how to teach their kids how to read. So like parents of like 4 and 5 year olds and stuff, teaching them like how those kinds of skills. There's so much, the potential is so great. And the online course or online education industry is only growing, like year over year over year, it grows. And I don't know the projections at the moment, but every time I look at the projections, it's insane. Like it's going to be $1 billion industry by this particular year, whatever. It's not going anywhere. And I think you just need to get really clear with yourself on like, maybe it's that thing you did as a teenager that you've kind of suppressed, like that hobby that you love to do that you've suppressed, that you actually just need to get back in touch with and explore that again. And so there's this like place of like looking at your passions, looking at your skills, And then the next thing is to look at kind of like doing your market research and looking at what else is out there in that area, what's already being sold. If you can find other courses or memberships or whatever around that particular topic, what are they teaching? Usually, if you can find the sales page, you're going to find their list of modules or like what comes with the course. So look at that. Create a spreadsheet for yourself as you do your Googling and just make note of what else is out there. What are the price points that those things are being sold at? And then if you want to go next level into market research, get yourself into the communities where the people who are interested in that particular topic or niche are hanging out. And then what questions are they asking? So that could be a simple thing would be like, even in something like a Reddit forum. That seems really weird to like go to Reddit, but like there's tons of people asking questions about any kind of subject there. Another thing is like going onto Facebook, and you can find Facebook groups for literally every niche or topic or interest out there. Like I remember somebody talking about how people complain that like, oh, maybe my market, there's not really a market for this. And it's, there are not enough people or whatever. She just gave the example of like, she went onto Facebook and searched for corgi, like, the dog, like corgi dog owners, and found a Facebook group with like 550,000 members. These groups exist, and you just need to spend your time on Google, essentially diving into them and really understanding what are the pain points that they're experiencing, what kind of problems are they looking to solve, and how could you solve those with some kind of digital offer.
Yes, I think that's obviously really great advice. And I think what you were just saying, I think one other thing that can help people is maybe like ask people around you what they come to you for, because a lot of times we don't see what we're good at and we don't think people would pay for that. You think like, oh, this is just natural, or like I make easy dinners every night, like for 10 minutes, like I give all the recipes out because I just know how to throw like 5 ingredients together or whatever. And you don't realize like people pay for memberships for that, or people will buy things because they want to make their life easier. And a lot of times when you start realizing like, oh, everybody comes to me for this, you can turn that into a business.
100%. I think you hit the nail on the head. And just like to reiterate what you just said, is like the thing that comes naturally to us is often the thing that we don't see in ourselves, and that it absolutely is that gem of a thing. And we dismiss it for a really long time. I was like talking with a client yesterday, a coaching client, and she was saying this thing about, she teaches about systems and that kind of stuff. And she was saying something about Gmail and like her ability to organize Gmail, like with filters and folders and canned responses and all these things. And it just comes really naturally to her to like create a really effective system for Gmail. And this is for business owners. And I was like, well, that is incredibly useful. I actually didn't know some of those things. And I've been in business for a long time. Like you could absolutely create a training product around that. And like it had never even dawned on her to do that.
I love that. And that's another thing that I see. And I think maybe for this audience specifically, when you've been in an industry for a really long time, you actually know, like, what Gemma was just saying is like kind of go where that your niche is. And I mean, if you don't want to be in that industry, that's another story. And I'm not in any way encouraging you to start a business just to start a business. But I often see this, and I wish I'd known this, like when I was a lawyer, after I quit and I was doing other things, like I'd go to tech events and then I would see how much of a need there was for just like kind of quick templates, like people just starting their LLCs. And it's just really easy stuff that you're just kind of, it doesn't take a ton of like one-on-one work. It's kind of the same forms all the time or whatever. And I kept thinking, oh God, if there was just a lawyer that would offer this to these people at like a cheaper price, because lawyers tend to have such high, hourly rates and people can't, so they just don't hire lawyers and they do it themselves. Like it would be such a huge business. And now I've seen so many lawyers pop up that are doing this over the last couple of years that I think is great. But I think even in your industry, like I've seen online courses where person was an art teacher and then now teaches art teachers how to lesson plan or creative ways to teach kids. It's a 7-figure business. Like she's making multiple 7 figures, multi-million dollars selling to art teachers. Like art teachers don't notoriously have a lot of money, right? So they're buying like $10 lesson plans or whatever it is, but there's enough of them that want help. And so she did this for so long and was good at it and was like, I can make this. So like even in the thing that you're in, like there's so many ancillary ways, like you were just talking about, maybe it's helping someone just create systems in their business. Maybe it's helping, like I think about this with lawyers. Like I know people now that have online businesses helping lawyers set up their firms. I know people that are, working as lawyers, helping people, online business. There's just so many little things that you can bring online that we don't really think about.
Absolutely. I was hearing somebody talk the other day even about they're a physician, and she started an online business coaching other female physicians, like in terms of career coaching. And that blew up for her, that business. So yeah, you don't have to necessarily take 10 steps to the right and do something completely different. It may actually be the thing that you're already doing. You're just doing it in a different way.
Absolutely. One thing I want to highlight is that you were just talking about, like, you have this multiple six-figure business, and obviously you have a bunch of different products, but you were saying like in your membership is 200 people, and you were just talking about this Corgi group that had 500,000. I just want to get people to understand that you don't need a ton of people in order to have a successful business. Like, one of the reasons people don't start is like, oh, someone's already doing it. And like when you start thinking that there's just in America, like if you're listening to this in America or Canada, or what, there's hundreds of millions of people, and you're trying to capture like 1,000 of them. You're not trying to be Nike here. Like, you're trying to create a business that will sustain your life. And it's so much more doable than I think people realize.
Yeah, that's like such a common mindset thing of like getting in our head about this idea that if somebody else has already done it, there's no space in the marketplace for me to do it. And I mean, that would be like saying Starbucks is successful as a coffee shop, so there's no place in the market for additional coffee shops. And we just know that that's not the case. That's just a block that I think as a budding entrepreneur, you just need to like recognize, set it aside, realize it's irrational, and just like continue to step. I think often what's happening is like we have fear, or we're uncomfortable with like having to put ourselves out there and start to get visible and start this new thing. And what if it's a failure? And what if it doesn't live up to my expectations? And what if I can't make it work? And that's just all your fear talking. And you're trying to come up with rational excuses for why you're not going to take that step. And they're actually not, they're not valid, right?
Absolutely. And I think it's just a matter of like what we've seen before with businesses. Again, what we look at like mainstream media, and you think like a business has to be this huge brand or has to be this like have tons and tons of clients. So it seems like an insurmountable kind of a mountain to climb where you're like, well, I don't know anything about that kind of marketing. And I just think like you can really start with a small group and create a viable business. So
100%. And with digital offers in particular, generally speaking, what you're doing is you're building a personal brand, right? You're building a brand around you. This does not have to be some giant thing with a huge amount of followers. Like, I still don't have 10,000 followers on my Instagram. Like that, I feel like in today's world, it's like we measure success against our Instagram following count. And like that, it actually bears it's nothing. Like, it doesn't mean anything.
There are literally, I mean, there's now been like articles and stuff that I've read where there are Instagram quote unquote influencers who have like hundreds of thousands of followers and can't figure out how to monetize it, or don't know how, or haven't done it. And I personally know a couple of guests that have been on here, a couple of people that I know in the space, and like you were just saying, who have way less than 10,000, maybe 1,000, 2,000, who are making seven figures, like million, it's like none of this stuff correlates. Because we just see it one way and we think that's the path. Like, there's so many other ways to kind of create a business now.
Absolutely. Just back to the point too of like, well, if somebody else is already doing something in my niche, then there's not space for me. Like, it actually means that there's demand in the marketplace. That's actually a good sign. If you see that other people are selling products around the topic that you want to sell on, that's a good thing. Take that as a good sign. Look at what they're doing. Look at their frameworks and the types of offers that they're selling. And then think about, okay, what's my unique spin? Like, what's going to make my offer stand out? How am I going to add value in a way that's like a little bit different from them and have my own unique thing? And people are going to be drawn to you for that. And the more you can lean into what makes you different and what are your core values, and even in terms of like your branding, what are the things that when you're building a personal brand, your kind of pillars of, like, for me, for instance, one of them is motherhood. And like, I talk about being a mom. I talk about like balancing entrepreneurship and motherhood. My kids show up in my email newsletters or on my Instagram or whatever. And so I'm therefore attracting other moms, other parents who want to get into digital products or build that kind of business for themselves. And they're attracted to me because that's part of my personal brand. Whereas there are many other people in my same niche teaching on the same types of topics who don't have kids. And that's not part of their brand. People aren't going to resonate with them as much, right? For various reasons.
100%. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think going back to what you're saying about this, we all have it where you see someone else. I've heard so many people say like, oh, I was going to do this, but then I saw someone doing it. And it's like, okay. And they're like, obviously that is a block. But one thing that I will just share as like a personal experience that I think people don't take into account as much is because I do think your voice is different, your perspective is different. There's room for everybody. And there's going to be people that resonate with you that don't resonate with other people and vice versa. And that's all okay. And I think that's great to know. But one thing is what's interesting, like when I started my podcast and I started looking at the podcast landscape, and I knew I was very set on like, I was set on the name, I was set on the concept. I knew what I wanted to do because that was like the message that I wanted to put out there. I remember finding like 3 podcasts that were the same exact, like literally the same conversations about the same topic. And I remember in the beginning thinking like really deflated and being like, okay, I shouldn't do this. There's already like so many voices. Why do people want to listen to the same thing? But there was something in me that wanted to do this so bad that I was like, I don't care. I'm going to do it. And what's funny now, I mean, in hindsight, now it's been a year and a half, of those 3, 2 of them just stopped doing it and they've gone on to do other things, right? And I think about that a lot. And I think like, you don't have control over what other people are doing. You only kind of have control over yourself. And what a shame it would have been if I didn't pursue this thing that I really loved or wanted to do based on what someone else is doing. And then for them, it was a hobby or maybe, whatever happened and they wanted to move on and are doing complete things in other fields. Like you can't control that. It's like, just run your own race, figure out what it is you want to do and just do that thing.
Do that thing. Exactly. And listen to your own gut and your own intuition and follow what it's saying. Because I think that's the other thing. It's like the danger of social media. And I kind of, for me anyway, it's like Instagram in particular. I like watch other people's stories and all that kind of stuff. And it can, even if you don't realize in the moment, it can have such a huge effect on how you run your business. If you see other people running businesses in the way that they run theirs, and somehow it influences what you think you should be doing. And it's so important to like stay true to yourself and stay in your own lane and do the things in the way that feel right and good to you, because we can just be so influenced and allow our businesses to like follow this other path because that's what we feel like we should be doing because we see other people doing that. And it just it's not actually in alignment. And what's going to end up happening is like, might be okay for a while, but then 2, 3, 4 years down the road, you're going to be burning out hard because that was not the path that you should have been taking. That was like in line with what you truly wanted.
Absolutely. I mean, there's definitely something to be said for putting Instagram down and walking away and figuring out what it is you want to do.
Yeah. I mean, I've definitely put some barriers around that for myself. I love using Instagram for my own business and connecting with my audience on Instagram and in the DMs and all that. But I have had to put a hard barrier for myself watching other people's Instagram stories and being influenced by their stuff. It just seeps into my consciousness. Like I can't help it.
I actually had a very recent experience with that too, because I kept thinking like, I don't know why people think it's so bad. Like I don't feel that way. And I am very intentional about who I follow and kind of curated. So if I know something intentionally makes me feel bad, I definitely unfollow. And so I was like, I have a lot of positive people. I have a lot of people in this space of like self-help, which like is what I'm doing. I was like, well, I don't feel like that. And I remember just taking stock for a couple of days. Like every time I would be on Instagram for like way longer than I should have. And I would get off and I would just have this like heavy feeling. And I didn't even know what it was about. Like I just felt bad. And I was like, I don't know. It is regardless, even though they're like saying happy things, like it's comparing, it just makes me think like their life is together, even though all of it's a facade. But I was like, wow, it just really is this like voyeuristic thing, like makes you feel bad after a while. And so you got to really be conscious of that.
Yeah. I just got back from a 2-week holiday with my family and I deleted Instagram off my phone during that time. And I can't tell you how much lighter I felt. Like, and especially the thing that's like I fall into bad habits around is looking at it right before bed. Like I get my phone to put it on do not disturb and go stick it on the charger. And like the minute I pick it up to go put it on do not disturb, it's like I cannot help myself of like clicking the Instagram button and then starting to watch stories. And then 25 minutes goes by and I'm like, oh my gosh, like I wanted to go to bed early and now like what's happened? And literally it gives me anxiety in my chest. Like, even if it's to your point, like these lovely people that I think are amazing humans and like, yeah, it's all positive stuff. And it's not like I'm actively feeling insecure or jealous. It's just something happens and I get some anxiety around it. And I don't know what it is, but anyway, it's like you have to watch that in and of yourself.
Totally. And that leads me actually to my next question, though, because you were talking about how a lot of this online digital product businesses is basically a personal brand. And I know a lot of people have a lot of hangups with that because especially when you've just been in the kind of the traditional world. And I think for people from my generation and on, social media is not a natural thing. And I remember before I started this podcast, I would post a picture of my kids maybe twice a year. And that was it. Like that was what my Instagram was. And like, forget about stories and stuff. I hated pictures of myself. I never wanted to be on camera. And that was a really big block for me. And I think that is what stops a lot of people because they don't want to show up like that. They cannot figure out like how to have this business while trying to hide, which like you can't. And so how do you get over that?
I think there's like a few things we can talk about. So the first thing is that, yes, you are going to need to get visible in order to grow your business. Like you can't just hide under the covers and assume that people are going to hand you money for something if you're not getting visible about what it is that like the products and services that you're putting out into the world. You do need to get visible, whether or not you put it under your own name. Like you could have a company name that's not your name. That's okay. But you're going to need to be the face of your company regardless. To the point about like the tools that you use, i.e. social media or whatever it might be, that's up to you. If you're not comfortable with Instagram necessarily, if that's the one that's like really making you feel hung up, if you would rather build your business and use Facebook as the tool to connect with your audience, then do that. If you would rather have YouTube be the way in which you connect and deliver your content, do that. Choose the thing that feels the best for you. And I would say, like any of my students will tell you that I always talk about an email list. And that is definitely going to be, if you're wanting to build a digital product-based business, you need to have an email list and your revenue is going to correlate directly with the size and engagement level of your email list. That's just how it is. But you can build an email list. You don't need Instagram to build an email list, for instance. So you can write incredible blog posts. Maybe you're using Pinterest and SEO to drive traffic to those blog posts because you're more in tune with being a writer. And then you connect at that deep level with your subscribers on your email list. And that's where you're visible. You're visible in your emails, your weekly emails to your people where you're telling stories and adding value and teaching and doing all of those things. I really hate it when we see so many ads or gurus out there telling us that there's like one way of doing something, that it has to be on Instagram or you have to have a YouTube channel or you have to do X, Y, or Z. And that's just not the case. You can use the tools, don't really matter. It's just about growing an audience and connecting with them. And the tool you use is up to you. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. That makes a lot of sense. And I do think it's, while I get it, because I went through it and I think that you can tailor it however you want. And there are tons of people that maybe use Instagram and then don't show up all the time on video, maybe use like pictures and figure out ways to make it work. A lot of that is just obviously insecurity, and it's working on that. It's working on the self-confidence of the fact of like, you are allowed to put your voice out there and have it, I think we just have to really work past the barriers of like taking up space and being visible and being okay with that. And I know for some people, like they equate it to like, oh, I'm an introvert. And it's like, I don't think it has anything to do because I was an extrovert and I hated the same thing. It's just a matter of don't tell yourself that's what it is. Because I think a lot of times people think like, I can't do it because I don't like this. No, it's because like you have insecurities and you need to work on the insecurities.
Yeah. I mean, I'm an introvert. I'm an INTJ on the Myers-Briggs, and sure, might have had the same insecurities in terms of like showing up live but it's like a muscle. And the more you do it, the more stronger it becomes. And it just becomes easier over time. And those things fall away. And I think that we talked about this earlier, but everything with entrepreneurship, no matter what route you decide to take, whether that's a physical product or a digital product or services or whatever it looks like, there's going to be fear and discomfort. And the only way you're going to grow your business is if you walk into that and like just face it.
Yeah, absolutely. And so how did you, well, maybe you can give us a couple of tips of like for people that are maybe already on this train and they want to have their digital products. And you talked about how you've kind of built this multiple six-figure business without really a big social media following. And you were saying that you encourage collaboration and that kind of stuff more than a lot of what other people say. So what are some tips that people can use to maybe grow their income or their impact or some visibility through collaborations and affiliates and that kind of stuff?
When I'm referencing like using collaborations and partnerships to grow your email list, what I'm talking about are things like this, getting onto podcasts, right? And getting yourself in front of other people's audiences. It could be something like one of my favorite things that, I mean, you have to already have a somewhat established business. Like you can't do this necessarily when you have nothing yet, but are doing like lead magnet swaps. So if you have some sort of free resource that leads into eventually your paid products and services, if you can connect with another business owner who has the same target audience, but you guys don't have competing products. So I'll give you an example. For me, like I teach about how to create and sell digital products. I have a friend who teaches about Facebook ads. So we have similar audiences in that we both speak to online entrepreneurs, but we're not selling competing products. And so one thing I did with her was she wrote to her email list one week all about me and my lead magnet and why they should go sign up for it. And I wrote to my list all about her and her lead magnet. And we did like a swap, right? What an easy like win-win for both parties to get yourself seen in front of their audiences. It could be like writing a guest article. It could be going in and doing a free training for somebody's group, whether that's like a paid group or maybe it's doing a free training inside their Facebook group. So like if you're really getting started in a brand new topic in a brand new niche, kind of the steps that I would take is like develop the most basic website. You do not need to go spending a bunch of money on some fancy website right now. Have the most basic website that actually could just be like a one-page landing page that has a little bit about who you are, the people you serve, and what you do. And then it's got some kind of opt-in, because let me tell you, if you don't start building your email list from the beginning, you're going to come back in a year or 2 years and say, oh, if only I had started building my list at the beginning of my business. So start now, have some kind of amazing freebie on there, whether that's a PDF, a checklist, a download, some kind of tool template, whatever it might be, a free video series, something like that. Start getting yourself in front of your target audience. And so, yeah, that might be going onto Facebook, find 5 or 10 groups, like free Facebook groups that have your target audience in them. Reach out to the owner of that Facebook group and say you would love to do a free, like really valuable 20 or 30-minute training for their group. Pitch free. You're not pitching like paid products at the end of it. You're just wanting to come on and offer value. That's amazing. And maybe not all 10 are going to say yes, but maybe you're going to get a yes from 5 of them, right? And then you're getting yourself in front of those audiences and have your lead magnet link or your landing page link right there so that the people who want to learn more from you go and opt into your email list. And then you're going to nurture those subscribers. Even if you just start with 10, 20 subscribers, you're going to start sending a weekly email and nurturing those people and just allow it over time to snowball and snowball. And you don't need some giant email list in order to pre-launch your very first product. If you hit 100 subscribers, 200 subscribers, pre-launch a product, right? Like put something out there and see what the response is like. And this is something I always like to talk about is like, don't go putting the cart before the horse. Don't go create some 8-module, super lengthy course if you don't know that people are going to buy it. And so this is why it's so important to just start building that interest list and pre-launching, meaning you've put together the idea of what your offer is going to be, but you actually get people to buy it before you go and create it.
I love that. I think that's incredible advice. And I agree that like definitely people think they have to start their building the audience by themselves. And I see so many people spending so much time on Instagram trying to find like one follower after another. And I always say it's like so much easier to just get in front of other people's audiences. And if you can provide value and you can teach and you can do it, it's a much quicker way and smarter way to start building your audience.
Absolutely. Like the people that you see who seem to like show up out of nowhere and they like catapult really fast, it's on the tails of other people's audiences.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you start doing this, you start seeing like the people, especially the people that are very good at doing this and are very successful, when they have a launch or whatever, you just start seeing them popping up on every person's podcast, blog, YouTube show. You know, that's like the new way of PR. Instead of like trying to get on, Channel 4, you're trying to get on every other person's platform so that you can get in front of their audience.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, Gemma, how can people find you if they want to work with you or learn more about the things that you provide?
My website is GemmaBonham-Carter.com. So you can get all the scoop there if you want to work with me in any capacity. It's all on there. You can also follow me on Instagram. It's at Gemma.Bonham-Carter. Come say hi, send me a DM. I love chatting in the DMs. So definitely connect that way. And then I think what might be helpful for your audience is I have a free list building guide. So if you're sitting there thinking, ooh, I need to build my email list, I don't quite know how to do it. I have this guide where I asked 20 of like the biggest online, like digital marketing experts. Like you're going to get the list. You're going to be like, whoa, because it's like an incredible group of folks who I asked them all, what was their number one strategy for building their email list? And literally all 20 of them came back with different answers. And I put it into this guide. I'll drop the link for that so you can include it in the show notes if they're interested in that.
I'll definitely do that. I'm going to go sign up for that myself. I need to know what those are. Do you have any parting words for people that are on the fence and don't know how to, or just is kind of scared to start?
Totally. I would say that fear is normal and uncertainty is normal, and that everybody has felt that way. Even the people who seem to be insanely successful, who you look up to, felt that way too. We all started from zero. Everybody does, just to try and like put that fear aside. And then just to really just go for it and know that you have nothing to lose, right? Like you're not, to your point at the beginning of the episode, like you're not having to go and find investors and put in capital. And this is it's the cheapest way to start a business. You truly have nothing to lose, but you have so much incredible opportunity right in front of you and so much to gain. And you may discover that you can build a dream business to support your dream life. And it's not that hard to do.
I love that. And with that, thank you so much for sharing your expertise and time with us. This has been wonderful.
I loved being on the show. Thank you so much for having me.
How amazing is Gemma? I love her. And I hope you like this episode. Here are my 3 takeaways. Obviously, the first one is that you should think about an online business. I know for a lot of you, this may be a new world and you don't really know much about it. I encourage you to take some time and really start researching and looking at what people are doing online. It's mind-blowing. I have tried to highlight some people on this show, but seeing the businesses that people can create from their own homes by themselves without any capital is remarkable. And it is a really good avenue if you find something that calls to you. So think about it. 2, you don't need a big audience to create that business. We talked a lot about how to collaborate and use other people's audiences, and the fact that you can build a business with a small handful of fans. And so once you can figure out how to solve a problem for them, it becomes a lot more doable to create a viable business. And 3, fear is normal. Everybody feels it. Everybody that started in any of these spaces, whether it's for the business part or personal branding part, it's normal, but it shouldn't be the thing that stops you. So understand that underlying that fear is just limiting beliefs, and you can work on that and be able to push through it. And it is so worth it on the other side. I hope you guys liked this episode. If you did, reach out to Gemma and let her know. And I will be back next week with another one. Thank you so much for listening. I can't tell you how much it means to me. If you liked the podcast, please rate and review us on iTunes. It'll help other people find the show. If you want to connect or reach out, follow along on Instagram and Facebook at Lessons from a Quitter, and on Twitter at Quitter Podcast. I would love to hear from you guys, and I'll see you on the next episode.